The first time Ethan Miller drove up the old gravel road to her house, he felt something strange in his chest, something he hadn't felt in years. Maybe it was the quiet. Maybe it was the way the afternoon light fell across the crooked wooden gate he'd been hired to fix. Or maybe it was the woman standing behind it, watching him with eyes that looked like they carried too many stories. Ethan was 37, tired in ways he never admitted, and working 2 repair jobs a day just to keep his mind from wandering back to the past he was trying to outrun. Fixing things was easier than fixing himself. Tools made sense. People didn't. Her name was Lily Thompson, 26. Soft voice, quiet posture. A kind of beauty that didn't try to impress anyone but still left an impact. She lived alone in that old white farmhouse on the edge of Willow Creek, the one neighbors said hadn't felt like a home since her parents passed years ago. Ethan didn't know any of that when he first stepped out of his truck. All he knew was that when she smiled, something inside him shifted. "Thank you for coming," she said, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "The gate keeps jamming and I can't open it half the time." Her voice trembled slightly, as if she wasn't used to asking people for help. Ethan nodded, keeping his tone steady. "I'll take a look." The gate really was a mess. Rusted hinges, splintered wood, like it had been neglected for years. As he worked, Lily stayed nearby, leaning against the porch railing. She watched him with an attention that wasn't intrusive, more like she was trying to figure out who he was, without saying it out loud. He tried to ignore the feeling of her eyes on him, but it lingered anyway. After a while, she spoke again, softer this time. "You work alone?" "Most days," he answered. "Must get lonely." Ethan paused halfway through tightening a bolt. No one ever asked him that. Not directly, not without judgment. He didn't look up right away. When he finally did, Lily's expression wasn't pity, it was understanding. And that unnerved him more than he wanted to admit. He cleared his throat. "Some people prefer quiet." "And you?" He didn't have an answer. Not one he was willing to say. She smiled gently like she already knew. Minutes stretched into an hour as he worked. The only sounds were the click of metal, the soft rustle of trees, and Lily's occasional breath when she forgot to hide it. There was something in the air between them, unspoken, cautious, but real. When the gate finally swung open with a clean, smooth motion, Lily's eyes widened. "I haven't seen it move like that in years." Ethan wiped his hands on his jeans. "It should hold up now." She stepped closer, closer than he expected. Close enough that he could smell the faint lavender on her skin. "You fixed more than the gate," she said quietly. "You fixed the one thing that always reminded me I was alone." Her words hit him harder than he was ready for. This wasn't just a repair job. She wasn't just another client. Something about her softness, her loneliness, her courage to speak it out loud. It reached places he'd buried long ago. Ethan opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, a sudden crack echoed in the distance, a branch snapping, or footsteps. He turned, instinctively alert, scanning the trees lining the property. "Do you get visitors out here?" he asked. Lily's face drained of color. "No," she whispered. "Not anymore." A cold wind slipped through the field, and Ethan felt it, an uneasiness that had nothing to do with the gate. Something, or someone, was out there. And whatever it was, Lily clearly feared it.
Ethan didn't scare easily, but the look on Lily's face made his pulse tighten. Fear wasn't a stranger to him. He'd seen it in people before. But on her, it looked different. Younger, rawer, like something she'd carried too long. He stepped in front of her without even thinking. "Stay behind me." For a moment, neither of them moved. The trees stood still, but the silence felt too perfect, like the world was holding its breath. Ethan scanned the yard again, each muscle braced, waiting for something to move. Nothing did. Finally, Lily exhaled, shaky and thin. It's probably just animals, she said, but she didn't sound convinced. Do animals usually make you this nervous? Her eyes flicked away. It's nothing, but it wasn't nothing. He felt it in the tension of her shoulders and the way her hands trembled before she hid them behind her back. He didn't press her yet, but he wasn't leaving without answers. Ethan kept his voice low. Let's go inside for a minute. She hesitated, then nodded. He followed her up the creaking steps onto the porch and into the small living room that smelled faintly of tea and old wood. Everything inside was neat, but in a way that felt more like she was trying to keep her world from falling apart. Tight, controlled, quiet. Lily sat on the edge of the couch while Ethan stood near the door, still watching the yard through the window. You want to tell me what's going on? She shook her head. It's just someone used to come around here. Someone who wasn't supposed to. Her voice faded, but it was enough for him to understand. A boyfriend, he guessed gently. She gave a small, unhappy laugh. That's what he called himself. But he never really cared about me. He cared about control. She swallowed. When I finally ended things, he didn't take it well. Ethan's jaw tightened. Did you file a report? I tried, she whispered. But he disappeared before they found him. And a few weeks after, things started happening again. Missing tools. Scratches on the gate. My porch light smashed. Little things, but enough to make me wonder. Ethan's stomach twisted. He'd seen men like that. Men who didn't know how to walk away. Men who took their fear of losing control and turned it into something dangerous. You should have told someone, he said. I didn't want to bother anyone. She looked up at him, eyes soft and sad. And honestly, until today, I didn't think anyone would care. His breath caught a little at that. Lily, he said quietly, you matter a whole lot more than you think. Her gaze lingered on his, and something warm flickered there, trust, fragile but growing. Before he could say more, a loud thump hit the side of the house. Lily gasped, jumping to her feet. Ethan moved faster. He pulled open the front door and stepped out onto the porch, eyes scanning the dim evening light. Nothing, just the wind stirring the grass. But the thump had been real. Too real. He walked around the side of the house, every muscle alert. Halfway down the wall, he stopped. There, pressed into the dust on the siding, was the shape of shoe print. Fresh. He crouched, examining it. Large. Heavy tread. Someone had been right up against the house. Watching. When he returned to the porch, Lily stood frozen in the doorway, her face pale. What did you see? She whispered. Ethan didn't soften the truth. You weren't imagining things. She pressed a hand to her mouth as fear flooded her expression. Without thinking, Ethan stepped closer and gently touched her arm. I'm not leaving you here alone tonight. Her eyes filled with emotion. Not relief exactly, but something deeper. Something that made Ethan feel protective in a way he hadn't felt in years. You don't even know me, she whispered. He shook his head. Sometimes you don't have to know someone to want to keep them safe. Her breath trembled at his words, and he could feel the shift between them. Quiet, but unmistakable. A connection forming. Not rushed. Not forced. Just real. She looked up at him, her voice so soft he almost missed it. Then stay. And Ethan, a man who had avoided closeness for so long, found himself answering without hesitation. I will.
Ethan stayed close to Lily for the rest of the evening. Even as the sky faded into shades of purple and night settled over the farmhouse, the tension in the air never completely left. Lily tried to act normal, making tea, straightening pillows, pretending she wasn't checking the windows every few minutes. But Ethan saw through all of it. He sat near the front window, watching the yard like a guard dog who had found his purpose again. He told himself he was here because it was the right thing to do. But if he was honest, being near Lily felt necessary. Like she awakened something he had buried so deep he'd forgotten it existed. She approached him with 2 mugs of tea. It's chamomile, she said softly. It helps when I can't sleep. Ethan accepted the cup, but didn't drink. You still have trouble sleeping? Lily looked down. Most nights. He touched her hand lightly. You don't have to be afraid tonight. She sat beside him, their shoulders almost touching. Almost. The closeness felt warm in a way that surprised them both. Lily let out a slow breath. Ethan, you're the first person who's made me feel safe in a long time. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. His silence, steady and protective, said more than any promise. Hours passed. The house grew quiet. The uneasiness didn't disappear, but it softened. When Lily finally drifted into a tired sleep on the couch, her head gently leaning toward him, Ethan stayed awake, listening for anything out of place. Somewhere around midnight, a sound came from outside. Quick, light, footsteps on gravel. Ethan stood instantly. Lily stirred. "What's wrong?" He motioned for her to stay back. "Inside. Lock the door behind me." "Ethan." "I'll be fine. Just do it." She obeyed, though fear clouded her eyes. Ethan stepped outside into the cool night. The moon glowed faintly, casting long shadows across the yard. For a moment, everything looked still. Then he heard it. Someone moving near the trees. "Who's out there?" he called. His voice was firm, steady, unmistakably threatening. No answer. But he saw movement. A figure slipping between the trees like a shadow, watching him, waiting, testing him. Ethan took a step forward. The figure retreated. Another step. The figure turned and disappeared deeper into the woods, soundless and fast. Ethan didn't chase. He didn't need to. The message was clear. Whoever it was didn't expect her to have someone protecting her. When he finally returned inside, Lily stood by the door, trembling. "Was it him?" she whispered. "I think so. But he won't get near the house tonight." Her breath broke as relief hit her, followed by another emotion, one Ethan recognized immediately. Trust. Complete, fragile trust. He placed his hands gently on her arms. "You're not alone anymore, Lily. Not tonight. Not ever again. If you don't want to be." Her eyes softened, filling with something warm and overwhelming. "Ethan, you barely know me." He shook his head slowly. "I know how brave you are. I know you deserve better than the fear you've been living with, and I know I haven't felt this way about anyone in a long time." She stepped closer, her chest rising with each breath, her eyes shining with gratitude, hope, and something deeper. "You fixed a broken gate," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "But you ended up fixing something in me, too." He cupped her face gently, brushing his thumb over her cheek. "You fixed something in me first." She leaned into him, her forehead touching his, her voice almost a breath. "Stay. Not just tonight. Stay as long as your heart wants to." Ethan pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly, fully, protectively. It felt like he had finally found a place where all his broken pieces made sense. "I'm not going anywhere," he whispered. Outside, the wind moved softly through the fields, carrying away the last traces of fear. Inside, two people, both scarred, both lonely, both learning how to feel again, held on to each other like they had finally come home. The night wasn't the end of their troubles, but it was the beginning of something stronger than fear, something like love,